Welcome to Life on Life's Terms, episode 51. It's your host, Justin, with
Kenny.
We're going to get into awareness, positivity, living on life's terms, acceptance, and the bloody stress of the holidays. But before we do that, I got to pay some bills, so here comes the shout-outs real quick. If you don't like this, you can just fast forward. Liam Connolly at Connolly Law. For all of your Canadian law, will, estate, and media issues, Google Liam Connolly at Connolly Law, one of the best lawyers that we know, and he is very, very fantastic at media law. For all of your counseling needs, such as addiction, family counseling, please Google adaras.ca. That's ADARS.ca. The famous Chris Suchit will be able to accommodate you through Skype and FaceTime for all your mental health needs. You can get a hold of him through that website. So the bills are paid.
Nice.
How's your week going so far?
It's going pretty good. I'm planning for my daughter's birthday party this weekend, which is going to be fun.
What?
Yeah. And strange. I'm like, do you want to go to virtual reality? She's like, no, I just want the new Sims game. I'm like, do you know what virtual reality is? She's like, yeah, you wear that thing on your head and you play games. And I'm like, and you don't want to go?
Want that?
So I don't know, maybe next year. But I really want to.
You can go on your own.
I want to go so bad.
You can't go on your own. My friend, you're an adult, and you need to accept that. You ever have? I was talking to somebody a little while ago. You ever have these interludes where you're like, I'm adulting?
Adulting?
Yeah, where you recognize, oh shit, I'm all grown up.
No, I never have those moments.
I still get those every once in a while where I'm like, oh fuck, I've been paying the bills for a while now. I'll just think like that. I'm like, oh wow, look at that. I'm all grown up, right? Or I remember really, really young, because I lived independently at a very young age. I would be up at midnight walking around the streets and be like, wow, I can do this and not get in trouble. And it was like, shit, I'm an adult. Really, I wasn't. I was probably way too young to even be out in the street that late at night, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't due to parents not caring. It was more the fact that I was just going to do whatever the fuck I was doing anyways. It didn't matter really, try to stop me. So this awareness piece that we did that I had suggested in the intro, the awareness thing that I was going to talk about is society. I don't think you and I, the episode that's coming out tomorrow with Canman Dan, we talked a lot about societal issues, right?
Yeah.
But you and I don't really get into what's happening right now. We don't really get into right now politics.
Yeah.
We don't really get into, and I think we have our reasons for that.
Yeah.
But I think every once in a while to acknowledge the awareness about it is okay, So I think, is there anything that you have that's going on that you're seeing publicly right now that you're aware of, and
yes,
what's your view on it?
Well, there's lots. I see right now, and I believe this is going to happen over the next decade, is that we're going to see in Canada a shift in all the different systems. So in the healthcare system, in the justice system, in the education system, there's going to be a shift. There's going to be drastic changes in the next 10 years. Because now that we are living in an age of information and everything's at our fingertips, people are realizing that there's a lot more important information that we're not really teaching to our kids, and it's not part of the curriculum. And more people are becoming aware of the chemicals and carcinogens that go into pharmaceutical drugs, and how a lot of it is just Band-Aid solution where it doesn't fix the cause of the issue. So I think the healthcare industry is going to shift dramatically there. And then we always talk about the justice system.
Yeah,
I'm right for prison abolition.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So,
I mean, I stand with you on a lot of things. I think we are going to change. I think information. Well, I'll put it this way. So my daughter didn't go to regular public school. My daughter went to a private school in Belleville, Ontario called Albert School.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have to be very gifted to go to that school. I can tell you that if most of our kids went to that school and that was our actual public education, parents would be in an uproar that their children are learning what those kids are learning. And a lot of the reason for it is because it's not an indoctrinated education system. You literally pay for what your kids need in order to get to an Ivy League school. That's literally, like, if your child is going to that school, the likelihood of your child going to an Ivy League school like Yale or Harvard is probably a shoo-in at about 92%. That's where they're going, is to that level of education. And the things that she had learned in that school, there was no way they were going to teach that in our free public education system. And a lot of the reason for that was because there is a class system in education. And I really believe that our free public system has come away from actual education as a matter of facts, and they've gone to a social indoctrinated system where, I mean, you and I were really, our generation was like the first part of that world. We were the first part of pharmaceutical means to change behaviors of boys. Okay. We saw that rampantly. There's more people misdiagnosed with ADHD who took Ritalin from our generation because we're the top end of millennials. Okay?
Yeah.
So there's more men that took those medications and were indoctrinated in a way saying you just shouldn't be an active boy. Okay. Then the other thing that we had was, in my opinion, peer monitoring. So we used to have, like, you know, instead of everybody tattling from kid to kid or child to child to the teacher, there was like a peer monitor, and he was supposed to mediate. So it's what's called peer policing. That's really what that's called.
Yeah.
I mean, addiction treatments do it all the time, and the reality of why they do it is because they can't afford staff. That's why they do it, right? But when you're doing this, I think with youngsters, all it does is it gives somebody an authority who shouldn't really have an authority. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice to give them that responsibility at a young age, just like it's nice to give an addict in early recovery responsibility of a house. Is it appropriate? No.
Yeah, no.
They're not ready for that kind of responsibility.
You're losing your house.
Yeah, well, or like I'll use this as an example. I'll use my personal example. People, it may come across as a resentment, but I really don't care at this point. So one of the personal situations that I went through Three-Quarter House was I was out on bail and very, very strict conditions. Okay. And what ended up happening was I had gotten a pass to be out, but I was not, in my conditions, I was not allowed a cell phone. So I was given a pass to be out on the weekends, and I worked as a geomatic engineer at that time. So I had, and it was summertime, so I had like a career job, which I do not endorse anybody to have an early recovery. It's silly to have a career job. It really is. So anyways, I was out working this job, and due to whatever had happened at the house, unbeknownst to me, they had revoked my pass without ever getting a hold of me. So basically what ends up happening is if I don't show up at that house by 11 o'clock, I'm kicked out. My conditions dictate, one, I'm not allowed a cell phone. Secondly, I have to live at that place. I don't have a choice. So if I don't show up at 11, I'm out, right? The only reason why I ended up finding out was somebody in the house who was a friend of mine decided to call my girlfriend, whose house I was staying at over that weekend. So typically what I would do is I would just leave, go to work, and not even come back to the house for the weekend because I had a pass, because I didn't have to be back at the house till Sunday afternoon. Well, this person who was the house man or the house person at that time, basically the manager or peer policer, right? Basically got my pass or made it so that my pass was revoked. And his intention was to kick me out at 11 that night and then call the police on me so that he could actually have me breached.
Solid.
Right? So, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't suspect that somebody, just because they're in recovery or a young person, can handle that kind of responsibility, especially when somebody's been picked on or bullied, or, because then it just becomes vendetta. They haven't actually been taught why resentments are unuseful, right? All they know is that they want to come back to it. And I think the first lesson that I had ever learned about letting go of resentment and vendetta was when so another true story, this was in jail, learning that God is more just than I am. Universe, whatever you want to call it, okay? Whenever I say the word God, just label whatever you need to label in that blank, okay? So this was the scenario. This person, long story short, had started a rumor that I was a pedophile in jail because they didn't like me. So what they
Must
ended
have been that mustache.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a bit. So they had did that, and then jail terms, they tried to kite me off the unit,
which is
basically write a note to a guard, because that's not being a rat at all. That I should leave.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't leave. I stayed on the unit, and so anyways, this guy was in jail, and he had a $500 bail. Right. All the while I envied this guy, and it was taking me everything not to hand him retribution for what the scenario that he had set up for me in that unit, which is horrible. Right. Like, that's the last thing you ever want to be called in jail. And typically the guards will tell other inmates that this guy is a diddler or a skinner or a pedophile. Yeah. Like, usually the guards will do that.
Yeah.
It's not up to the inmates to do that, really.
No.
Right?
The guards will set them up.
Yeah. So anyways, this guy who had said this rumor basically had a $500 bail, and I couldn't get bail if my life depended on it. Long story short, if you go back into my earlier episodes, I go into great detail of why I couldn't get bail. So anyways, I was granted bail. So I just shit the bed on like a $75,000 cash bail, right? And I got a fucking $1,200 bail ready to walk out. But at this time, family was not around me anymore. I didn't have access to cash, right? Like, nobody was coming up with cash. I shit you not, that poor guy got another bail reduction by the time I got out to $175 and still couldn't get his bail paid. Okay? I had some unknown nobody from thin blue fucking sky go and pay $1,200 because he had heard my story. I was only in jail waiting for bail for 4 or 5 days on $1,200. Right? At that moment, I realized how just my higher power is, because he like reading scripture and doing what I was doing in order to, because didn't have access to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous at that time. Not saying that that's the only spiritual thing I read, but I was in the Bible at that time, and the thing that kept being reiterated throughout the Bible was God would say, vengeance is mine, it's not for you to toil in. And I realized how many times in my life when I would become the hero, jump up on my fucking save-a-ho horse and go and ride on through the night, right? And I realized that, yeah, he is way more just than I will ever be, right? There's no point in holding a resentment against anybody, even in the moment when you feel vindicated or you need to have a vendetta in order to feel that vindication that you were right and they were wrong. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Not at all.
Right? And I think that's a big lesson, especially coming from jail. Like, I mean, let's face it, you're double doored with a fucking pedophile. There's a code, like you have to make done. Right? Like, you do not walk into that unit without making done. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't do that. So yeah, that was very, very challenging for me to like take that dry, so to say, and be like, yeah, okay, fine. You want to call me this bullshit? It's all going to pan out in the end anyways. Like, I'm not going to go anywhere.
That guy's probably dead today anyways.
Well, he had a pretty serious addiction to methamphetamine, and actually I feel for him. I've looked him up on Facebook a couple times, because his life isn't getting any better.
No.
I remember too that my sponsor used to say this. I when I was in early recovery, it's kind of funny, and I would say, Lenny, is it bad that these people who had more time than me, they relapse? And I'm like, good for you, you fucker. Right? He's like, it's bad, but sure, we all do it. But it's so true, right? Like, it's so true. So back to that information.
Well, I think that's part of like where you got to use awareness. You have to be aware. Is like you'll have those initial haterade feelings towards somebody, and but if you're aware of your thoughts and your feelings, then you can catch that, and then fill it in with something that's a little bit more positive that raises your vibrations and doesn't make you feel like shit. Because as soon as you talk shit about somebody else, the first effect, like the first cause of that, or the first effect of that, not the cause, the first effect of talking shit about somebody is it affects your body. Mm-hmm. It affects you physically.
Well, and I think that's, so God or Rod or Jesus Christ or whatever you want to call it. What's the calling to humanity? To me, in my opinion, acting out in humanity is acting out as an animal that's a human. Okay, I don't see humanity as innately higher than a human. Okay, what I do see higher than a human is the spiritual empowerment that you have inside of your body. See, Jesus Christ, however you want to look at the Bible, however you want to see that person, the only thing that he ever asked of you was to be better than what you are. That's all he ever really asked. And when Lucy, so that episode that you had did with Lucy, which is coming up in the future.
I think it's like November
something
16th.
Yeah, it's coming up. One of the things that she had said is that Jesus Christ told us that you will do more than I have ever, you will do better than I have ever done. Right? You will do more than I have ever done. So if that's the case, is it because Jesus Christ has asked us to imitate him to the best of our ability, knowing that we're perfectly imperfect?
No, just be better tomorrow than we were today.
But I think being perfectly imperfect is the key to is the part of our humanity.
Well, yeah, because you got to love and accept yourself.
And I think a lot of people who are offended by the gospel of Jesus Christ, or however you want to say that, however it was reiterated, I think the reason why they're so offended is because, one, it comes from ignorance. They actually haven't read it in a filter without religion, right? When I read the Bible, I didn't read it in a filter of religion.
Yeah.
I just read it as a book.
I read it looking for messages from my interpretation of God.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I didn't even go there. I wanted to discredit it. And I wanted to say, there's nothing good in here. It's all just a bunch of violence.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not the fact. You have to look at it as a parable, and it's theoretical. It's not an exacting, it's not an exacting literature. Right? And like I said, when I got into the New Testament or the gospel, right? The things that I identified with the most was if Jesus Christ was real or not real. I mean, in my opinion, he was. Some people not, right? Nobody has ever been offended by Christ. Nobody. There is no religion out there, not even the Islamic world, who dislikes Jesus Christ.
No,
right?
No, they don't.
There is.
He's still a prophet.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Like, nobody is offended by that person. So if there's anybody that I want to be assimilated to or imitate, it would be that person, because that person has been able to get along with everybody, right? Or be at least exposed in a positive light to pretty much everybody, right? So if that's just in its simplest terms what it is, well, then maybe by looking at the gospel in that filter and then saying to myself, okay, well, what is it that he's actually asking me to do? What's the message that's reiterated time and time again? The only thing he ever asked of us is to be better than a human. Be better than a human. Because everything of this earth comes from the other side, right? You can't take this to heaven or to the kingdom that he has created if that's where you want to go. The only thing that you're going to take is your soul, essentially, right? So your flesh and everything is just going to be cast to the earth because it was created from this earth. The one gift that he gave you was this thing called the soul or spirit that's inside of you. And that is the thing. If you allow that to guide you, you will never offend, right? If you allow that to be the brunt of the burden, you will never attract that negative side, right?
Cool.
So I
I
mean,
like that. I like that.
I mean,
That was
that's
nice.
so. I mean, that's one of the things that I had learned from the Catholic Church and reading the Bible and seeing it in that filter.
Yeah.
But I only went to religion after I had learned that.
Yeah.
And that again is tied in with that vendetta and vengeance. And I think when it comes to like the information that you were talking about, yeah, I agree that there's an abundance of information out there, and the problem is I'm not sure how much of it is disseminated in a real way that can allow somebody to foster what truth is. Right? I think that that's difficult for most people. And I think what the shackles are, back to when I was saying about my little one being in private school, the discernibility in order to see what's an indoctrination and what's not an indoctrination is very fascinating to me, because it seems to me that most of those who come from university and our public school are all indoctrinated within some sort of social ideology or ideology, however you want to say that. It's not, I don't see it. And then I see like people trying to make constructs. So I'll give a little tidbit about the blog I wrote. I said, maybe the key to inclusivity is to find your ability to be adaptable.
Yeah. Drop the mic.
Right?
That was good.
Because that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I mean,
the only reason there is exclusion is because some people don't adapt.
Well, and let's face it, does the world and the universe, is it able to pacify or placate an individual? No, because the entire world would be Kenny. Right? That's what it would be, right? We would all grandstand and say, well, I'm right. And then you say, no, I'm right. And no, I'm right. No, we have to come to a place where we adapt to each other and we become malleable within society. And I think for the most part, we've done that. I mean, let's face it.
In Canada.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, you and I, jail didn't teach us not to go back to jail.
No, otherwise I wouldn't have went back after the first time.
That's right. That's right.
Not 10 times.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like that didn't keep us out of bars. What kept us out of bars is we decided to adapt to society, right? We decided that we weren't going to be the subculture anymore.
Yeah.
We decided that we were going to go and play with the other kids. And we were going to, so then this is the next question, because this was the other thing that came up as I was talking about this with somebody was, well, okay, so if you're going to adapt, how do you keep your individualism?
Create.
Well, okay, I like that answer, but create what?
Whatever you're passionate about. Music, art.
Okay, what if you don't have anything in the arts?
Procreate.
Okay, so
be a parent. Let's
say, unfortunately, you're one of those guys who just can't, or one of those girls who just can't find another person.
Help somebody else create.
Okay, so there's service, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I said in my blog was, we all adapt to find the highest potential of our own service to provide society. So that's where you find your innate individualism, right? You find out what you are. Now, how can you adapt that to be a part of service for society, right? You may not be an artist. You may not be able to find that significant other to have a child with. You may not be able to go to academia, right? But there's something about you that is identifiable because it's unique to you. So adapt it and then contribute that to society to the best of your ability. If you can do that, well, then that takes all the guessing out of what you have to do, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes if you don't know your passion, well, what's unique about you? What can you provide?
Yeah, then upon providing, you'll find a passion.
And I think a lot of, so this will lead us into that positivity piece. I think a lot of what's happening is people would rather have depravity out of the stream of life.
Like to take from it.
Yeah. As opposed to adding something that's unique from them.
You know, something I say all the time, I learned this from a mentor of mine, giving is receiving.
Yeah.
Giving is receiving. And that the more you give, the more you'll receive. And I noticed that, like, when I give without the intention to receive something, without, like, ulterior motives, when I just give to give, I always receive, like, everything comes to me. If I'm in a state of giving and helping others, opportunities come, new positive relationships, money, jobs, everything.
I mean, I think I agree. I think the other thing is to do things without taking inventory.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I used to do that. I was the worst at that, especially in relationships with the other partner.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, well, I swept and I mopped and I shoveled and and you've got the laundry list of the honey to-dos in your head that she asked you to do, but you're like, fucking bitch owes me. I'm fucking nailing her in the ass tonight. Like,
I thought you were gonna drop blowjob line.
But that's kind of like where the mind goes, because really you haven't done any of those activities out of the goodness of your heart.
No, you just wanted anal.
And then the worst part is like you asked for the back door. And she's like, not a fucking chance.
I just don't ask.
Well, either way. So she says, not a fucking chance. And the next thing you know, you're sitting in your head running through, yeah, but I did this and I did this and I did this and I did this and I did this. And the reality is you were supposed to do that shit anyways.
Yeah, that's
right?
Your due diligence.
Like that's what you were supposed to do. That's how you just are nice to people. But apparently being nice to people means you get an ass ticket. And not to wipe the ass, but a free pass. Right? I mean, I think, and nowhere in that did that spell out that way, right? So again, going to that awareness of like, okay, so where are you coming from? Why are you doing what you're doing, right? Then to that positivity piece where you're like, well, I'm doing all this shit because I want to get paid back. No, you're not getting paid back for fuck all.
No, you do all this shit because it's the right thing to do.
That's right. Like even in service for recovering addicts or addicts who are recovered, going through the set of steps and sponsoring all those people. Why do you think they do? You know how many fucking sponsees relapse on you? Many before you ever see one that makes it. And then you take it so personally because you're that self-centered and selfish. I mean, where you're like, a motherfucker relapsed on me. What?
How could you?
How he could? Yeah. How could he? How could you? Do you know what I've been doing for you? Yeah, because you wanted their recovery more than they did, right? And then you like, I went back to my sponsor. I'm like, fuck, all these guys are relapsing on me. He goes, excuse me? I was like, yeah, I guess it's not really on me. He goes, you prove to yourself every day that you're recovered. Nobody else can tell you that. Just like I can't show you step one. Nobody else can show you that you're recovered every day except for you. You're the only one who has to buy into this thing, right? And when he said that, it was like, bing, the light bulb went on. It was like, fuck me. That's way easier to maintain than like changing the world.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like back to that meditation thing. Why do I meditate? Am I meditating for my welfare? Or am I meditating so that I can be positive for the environment? Right?
Yeah.
And it's funny when you say it, when you're like, well, I was doing it for me. And then you recognize, well, it's only like a drop in the ocean when it's for me. But when I'm meditating to be positive so I can be positive for others, it feels like you're actually contributing to the ocean. It doesn't feel so nothingness, right? There's an intention behind that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the other thing is you need to take responsibility for that positivity, right? That's a big thing that people miss. They don't see what they're actually responsible for. They miss that entire piece, right? Like you did this to me. What? Nobody's done anything to you.
Yeah, I know. I hate like when other people are like, you made me sad, or you pissed me off. You pissed yourself off, man.
That's right.
I'm not responsible for your feelings.
You know what I always say to people is I'll say, am I God? Am I that important to you that I'm your fucking God? Because if I can control your feelings and intentionally did that shit, well, then I would apologize. But if I haven't done anything in a deceptive way or tried to deceive you or tried to manipulate your feelings, I'm not going to apologize. I haven't done anything wrong.
If I was going to purposely manipulate your feelings, I'd manipulate your feelings all the way to the ATM machine with your bank card.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking for my next bag. Right? I mean, and that's kind of, I think that's one of the advantages that we have coming from the sickness that we've dealt with in our lifetime, is that we know what kind of manipulative behavior that is. I kind of tend to think that like people out there don't even recognize how manipulative they are.
You know, like back in the day, I used to take pride on manipulating people.
Yeah, me too.
I used to have fun with it.
Yeah.
I would have games with my friends about see who we can manipulate the hardest.
Yeah.
And it's like we would have these preconceived plans where we would go into like a meeting or a business meeting and just totally manipulate the shit, be fake as fuck, and try to come out on top with what we wanted out of that event. And now I like, that was just feeding into my alter ego. That was just feeding into this fake identity that I had.
Yeah. I mean, I think like there's still when I go into meetings today, I'm not there for myself.
You're there for the organization.
That's right. And I'm there for the organization to be able to contribute.
Yeah.
Right? Give me the ability in order to be able to provide these services.
Yeah.
Even in this podcast, you think about it, right? Like we were talking, I'm not going to say who, but we were talking to somebody a little while ago, and I was like, I suggested to them, hey, you should start a podcast on your own. And they're like, you really want me as competition? My social media is blah, 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 blah. And I was like, in the podcasting world, and this was kind of hard for me to wrap my head around, there is no competition. Sure, we all want to be in the top 10. Granted, you know, but at the same time, it's better for us to go from show to show and be amicable between each other as opposed to being like, fuck those people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what the hell is that going to get you? And you kind of find that territorialism through radio stations. Radio stations are very much like that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I remember a long time ago here, K-Rock, classic rock used to be against the Bear.
Yeah.
Right? And the listeners were even like passionate about their radio stations.
They identified with them. Yeah.
And that to me is ridiculous because that's a huge portion of tribalism. And again, that tribalism is different than nationalism. Right? Like I'm a nationalist. I believe that Canada is one of the best nations in the world, and the founding doctrine or document that has given us the freedoms that we have is a document called the Freedoms of Charter, like the Charter Rights of Freedoms and Privileges that we have here in Canada. I mean, you and I have beaten many cases because of that piece of paper.
Yeah.
You know, so like that's the reason why we're free, and anything that's going to infringe upon that, I'm vehemently against. Right? Vehemently against. So I think that's different. And then that tribalism goes back to where we had started this conversation off with, like, who we are as a human. Right? Like, that's where that goes. And unfortunately, what tribalism does is it allows us as humans to be divided and conquered. You know, if a black guy's not talking to a white guy, just essentially on color or vice versa. Right? Well, then that allows a small portion of a group of people, cabal, government, whatever you want to call it, to be able to govern. They govern, and they're able to make rules, and they're able to say, we rule you in this capacity. Right? That's not fun.
Yeah, if we were all working together and there was no competition, there was only cooperation, then we wouldn't need a government.
See, and what's inclusivity again? Adaptability. Can you adapt and be able to find the common ground? I think a lot of people are going to see that in tomorrow's episode with Can Man Dan when he was in.
Yeah.
You know, a lot. We all had different opinions about things, but we were all able to side to the middle of, I think this can help.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the other thing is, I'm going to reinforce this, is programs need to be individualized because not everybody is the same. So we do need many programs, but unfortunately, because of the way how we're set up in this country, is they're looking for a one and done. What's the cure?
Yeah, you're not going to get a one and done program in any social thing in Canada because we're a melting pot.
Well, and you hear ministers say this all the time, like there's not one fixed solution for everything. However, their bureaucrats act that way. You know, their bureaucrats act that way. The people that we're electing don't believe that it is a one and done solution, but the bureaucrats are the ones who act that way. You know, and that's the unfortunate piece. See, this is the other thing I'll throw at you a little bit for society, how I would like to see things change, especially here in Canada. A lot of people say that Canada's not communist, right? Well, I'll put it to you this way, and probably even America is this way. What are the best jobs that you can get? In my opinion, is probably working for the government. Why? You're going to get a good wage, a high wage, pension, and you're going to be done in 20 years. Won't have to work another day in your life, right? Now, if you go out into the private sector, which is like, the public sector, private. You're gonna have to wait for that salary a little bit longer, right? Well, if you look at Russia, guess who, and China right now, guess who are the highest, best paid people? The people who work for the government. Okay, you don't want to be a factory worker in China. That's a shitty job. But be in the military, you'll probably become an entrepreneur where the government backs you with all the financial means that you need in order to create business. Mm-hmm. Okay? Well, that's basically Canada.
Similar in that sense.
It's the same thing. Now, if we were to actually be free market capitalists, this is free market capitalism. You would start off in the government because it's the lowest paid salary possible. That's where you learn. And then what ends up happening is, let's say, for instance, I worked in the engineering field. So out of school, I'd probably go work for like Ministry of Transportation, building roads and such. Do my 2-3 years in that. And then after that, maybe a big company like Stantec would be willing to hire me with that 401k and that great pension plan. Why? Because I already have the beginning of my field career started with the government, and then the government is capped out with bottom end wages. No pension. It's not what you get working for the government. The government should not be superior to that of like the company world.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, but it is. Like you look at the not-for-profit world. Why is it that we miss out on great psychologists for social programs? Because they all work for the government, and when they're working for the government, they're indoctrinated with whatever the government dictates is the programs that need to happen, which is that one and done piece, right? You want a great psychologist to run a treatment center. I'll give the ability for that organization to be able to provide that kind of salary in order to get those top 10% people coming out of university and the education systems in order to sit in those positions. Allow them to train in the government, then go out into the market. Don't make them to go from the market to the government. That's totally ass backwards.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing I would like to see changed, is that entire philosophy, and our taxes would be cheaper. If all government agents...
Isn't that like Marxism?
No, Marxism is a little bit different than that. Okay. That's where like everybody makes the same.
Oh, okay.
And then they go into communism, right? But free market capitalism means that the market actually dictates how things happen. So like if somebody wanted to be a racist, like a racist company in free market, all you'd have to do is Me Too that motherfucker, and nobody's going to buy shit off of them, and the market will take them out.
Yeah.
You don't have to impact it by law. The market will just do it. Fuck you. You can't do that. That's unethical to us.
Yeah.
Right? Living on life's terms. I think these are the kind of ideas that allow me to live on life's terms.
Yeah. Acceptance.
You know, yeah, which is the next piece to that, right? You have to accept it for what it is. And if you don't, you're kind of, I said this to somebody a little while ago, and it kind of pissed them off, but they said it was true. It was, you can choose to be offended, or you can choose to find something agreeable in whatever somebody had said. One is the negative, and one is the latter is something that is positive. but choose wisely because your emotional and mental well-being depends upon it. Right? If you decide to be offended, well, your emotional and mental well-being is going to be impacted in a negative way.
Well, one of the 4 agreements, don't take anything personally.
Yeah.
Right? Don't take anything personally.
Yeah.
Or the infamous rule number 6, quit taking yourself so goddamn seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's
People take themselves too seriously, then their feelings get hurt.
Well, and yeah. Or they think that they are the end all be all. Right? I've seen that happen too, where it's like my way is the only way. You know, like, I guess so. Right? For now it is, I guess. We'll wait till you're gone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
like I think, but acceptance is a piece. Like, if you can't accept that place, person, thing, or situation as exactly being the way that it is supposed to be, you'll never move on. And then we're back to that square one where we were talking about resentment and vindication and vendetta. Right? You have to be able to accept. Even if you have to fake that you accept it.
Fake it till you make it.
Fake it. Right?
Well, there's a lot of truth that goes behind that fake it till you make it thing. With everything, like that's one of the founding. It's part of the foundation of my self-development is fake it till you make it, because where I want to be right now, I'm not. You know what I mean? Like where I want to be in the future, I'm not right now. And in order for me to get there, I have to be that, like, in my imagination and in my feelings and with my emotions, I need to be that person where I want to be in 5 years. And then that's how it kind of like comes to life for me, how it manifests.
I get what you're saying. I did do fake it till you make it like I'm a normal person for a long time.
Yeah.
And so, like, for instance, just a little while ago, I saw somebody breaking into somebody's house in a neighborhood that I was in. And my first instinct was to call the police. I was like, I'm a fucking rat.
You're healed.
Right? like that's what I thought. I'm like, I'm a fucking rat. But it hasn't been for a very long time that I had that secondary inclination.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, no, it's not that I'm a rat. I just, like, this is what fucking normal people do.
Yeah.
Right? And then the other part of me was like, I would go beat the shit out of him with a baseball bat, but then we're both going to fucking jail.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think, like, that's kind of those places. I think that'll always, or it happens when you start recognizing, like, oh yeah, okay, I have changed. Right? I remember I used to say all the time in early recovery, I'd be like, if this had happened when I was using, boy, holy shit, it would have been a blowout. Right? I don't even think that anymore.
No, you don't identify yourself by that anymore.
Well, I don't think I would know how to deal with this situation with the solution of drugs and alcohol anymore. I just don't know how to think that way. Right? I actually look at a situation and I'm like, okay, so what's the solution? Right? Where are we going? Because as long as I'm moving towards that solution, I can't fuck it up. I mean, I might, but the reality is at least I'm moving forward. Right? I'm not going back. Right? I think that's a big part of acceptance too. And to accept where other people are is a big deal.
Well, just accept them for them, because we can't change anybody.
So
all we can do is lead by example.
Would that also help inclusivity?
Yes, absolutely.
I agree. I think the biggest thing that was missing, though, is the adaptability of what somebody can do. You know, what bothers me the most that I'm seeing lately is like, I'm this way, therefore bend to me. And that's grandstanding. And
Okay.
I see a lot of that.
Yeah.
A lot of that where people, you know, I have pink hair, blue eyebrows, whatever the fucking tattoos, whatever, right? And instead of them saying, you know, this is the way I am, I can't change my tattoos, I can change my hair color, whatever, right? How do you become adaptable to society to the best of your abilities? I mean, we all went crazy and did stupid shit to our bodies or whatever the fuck we've done, right? But how is it that you adapted yourself afterwards? Right? That's the question. And there's a lot of people out there younger than us who miss that.
Yeah.
They're missing that. They're just grandstanding, basically pointing a finger at the man. And maybe we did that too in our own capacity through a subculture.
Yeah.
Maybe we did that, but I don't know if it's as great as it is now. You know, and I feel really old saying that, but maybe we weren't as crazy as it is now, because it is truly outraged today, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't agree with that.
You don't think it's outrage?
No, I think everything is perfect in its own way, in its own kind.
Yeah, I'm not trying to change it. I'm not trying to change it. All I'm suggesting is that society is acting in attributes of an addict, if you were to look at it as a person. And it's flailing out right now. You know?
Well, it all depends on how you look at it, too. Perception, awareness. Like, some people, like, I'd like to, my initial feelings and thoughts when somebody does something stupid is like, that guy's an idiot. And, like, that's my old programming. And that's the programming that keeps society at that struggling point. Struggling because, like, your opinion right there, like, the youth are having troubles. They're missing that important link, right? And I think that link you say they're missing can be filled with, like, compassion and understanding. And I don't know. Go ahead.
I mean, I agree.
I lost it. I had something. I lost it.
I agree. I think that there is that there needs to be a greater understanding. One of the things that I was reflecting on a little while ago was this. If you look at a guy growing up in the 50s, okay, that old nuclear family, let's say, okay? So you take some fucking 22-year-old, 23-year-old from rural wherever, married, 2 kids, and running a business called a farm, okay? And he could actually manage those responsibilities. I'd like you to take a 22-year-old today, put him out on the farm called a business with a wife and 2 kids, and see if he could manage. See, the thing that I'm starting to recognize, and this started in our generation, I really believe, is that you and I grew up in a very independent way. Okay, so it doesn't really reflect us so much. We were kind of thrown to the wolves at a very young age. Okay, but I'm starting to see that, like, why is it that 33-year-olds don't leave their mom's basement? You know, still hanging out, university degree, the whole bit, and they're not trying to get out of the basement, more so to say. It's because they're still in that mentality of only being 18, 19 years old. And it takes young people, young men especially, longer to grow up. Because I think for women, there's this ability or this want, this maternal drive to be independent for children. And men right now are scared shitless of it because they're already afraid of competition.
Well, you know, society has changed lots, like, between, in comparison, the man and the woman, and the roles are shifting, and emotional states are shifting, you know, and lots of households now, like, the breadwinner is the female, the mom, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, it's that ratio is changing. Like, it's rapidly. More women today are taking control of the financial situations in the household and everything. And there's more stay-at-home dads.
So I think this is going to segue us to our next episode, you and I together. So I'm going to do a shout out right away here to Movember.ca. You guys got to go check out Movember.ca. You need to sign up, and you also got to donate. You know why? Because don't be a dummy. Get your asshole checked and keep that health good. And make sure that you don't have fucking prostate cancer, because we're all getting older and we're going to die of cancer from
it's just
something
a couple
like an
fingers.
asshole. Yeah.
It's just a couple fingers.
So go get that checked out. This will segue us into the next episode, where we're going to talk about why men are dying more of suicide than women are. I know we've touched upon suicide quite a bit, but this was a request from Movember for us to discuss. So that's why I strongly, strongly encourage you, if you've made it this far through this episode, go check out Movember. They really need your support. They're not just talking about prostate cancer. They're talking about many men's issues. And there are a plethora at this time, I think. We've never been in a place where it's been this strange, you know, for men. And I think men have we may be having a difficult time with that adaptability.
Yeah.
And we feel excluded from society in the moment. I think that there's a feeling there, right? But I digress, and I think we'll pick that up on the next episode if you're cool with that.
Yeah.
So let's wrap that up.
All right, everybody. Please subscribe and share it to all your friends. Where can you find the after show blog? At www.lifeonlifestermspodcast.com. Please become a Pride member at your soonest convenience by contacting us and subscribing and checking out our website.
Get on that email list.
Get on our email list.
Yeah.
But I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. It was fun, and see you soon.
Have a wonderful day, guys.
Ciao, ciao.